Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, agency world.
Yes,
marketing.
Why is everything
people.
in threes?
Welcome.
Hello, hello, hello. Everything is like, what's that called? A try?
Because the human brain
Yeah.
can only process three things ideally. Anything more than that, you have to kind of.
Okay.
That's why
Hey,
everything's
my
in
mic
threes.
seems a little funky here.
It's because you're going straight on. Move
Yeah.
it. No, speak into the side. There you go.
I don't know what I'm thinking.
There you
today.
go.
Welcome
I need
to
another
Agency,
cup of coffee.
Agency Exposed, Brad.
She's exposing all my technical.
How are you? How are you guys doing?
Good, really good.
Good.
Been a good start of the year. I guess we're a few months in, 2-3 months in now when this episode comes out, and yeah, I mean, there's some exciting things. I think there's always challenges in front of you, and there's always exciting things.
Yeah,
I'm hearing from a few friends that things are off to a little rocky, slow start. But is that just January, or is that the world we're living in right now, or am I just talking to the wrong people? Because I'm not experiencing it. But
I'm not experiencing that.
we are.
okay,
But I'm not saying that we're something special. So
Yeah. Everybody's tightening their belts. We're getting some budget correction midway through.
yeah, I've heard that.
There's just I mean, I don't know. The Feds came out yesterday. Did you guys see that? And
Yeah.
it was actually not bad. They're going to raise interest rates maybe a couple more times, but then they think they're going to stop, which I think it gave people some hope. At least that's the first time they've kind of mentioned that. So I think next time the CPI numbers come out, they'll be able to. We'll see how those are
But
being
inflation's
affected.
not really. It's slowing a little bit. But
Yeah.
it's not really.
The challenge
stopping.
is are we in a recession? I think we are.
I don't think so.
Really?
I think it's the media is just scaring everybody.
I think all
because
the
every time I
indicators,
see
But is
earnings
that not,
reports,
I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
But are you not like in whatever you believe you're in?
yes.
I
now
look
you're
at
gonna
two
get me into-
indicators.
Yeah.
I look at two top indicators. That's housing and car sales. And if you look at those indicators specifically, now there's certain brands that are having some better luck here and there and posting. They've had good quarters.
Yeah.
But overall, it may just be a short term. But we're definitely, I think, in a correction. I don't know if you'd call it.
I would say
I don't
a
think it's a
correction.
long-term recession, and I think that's the key that the Feds are trying to say is, hey, we may be able to get out of this without a recession, but because recession typically is a couple years of struggle, and so we'll see. But I can see
once you dig
I can
a
see your
hole-
point of view, Bob.
I do think.
And it's a good one, but it's wrong. I'm joking.
I don't think. I think it's. I think perspective is important, but I don't know. I think technically we're not in a recession, right?
Technically, yes.
Are we or are we not?
Well,
I
initially
was
they
tracking
say
it for a while.
Yeah,
but like,
initially
what's
they
the-
say if the Dow is down over 20%,
right. Is that what it is?
Yeah, but the S&P's been cranking up, which is interesting. I think that goes to Bob's point of view is that it is fickle right now.
Did you see Meta? What happened to Meta yesterday?
No, I didn't.
The earnings report was better than expected, and the stock skyrocketed.
Yeah, I know that's been beat up. All these stocks that are been beat up, they might be.
Bitcoin shot up again.
I know.
Yeah.
Well,
I know.
if you look, I had some Netflix when it was really beat up, and I sold it for a profit. But if I just would have held it, it doubled like in the last 3 or 4 months.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
yeah. That's
There's
why
been a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, I look at a lot of that stuff, and I look at companies' earnings. I do think, and again, this is my opinion, that there was some overhiring during the pandemic and right after.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of shaking out. And I think
Yeah.
what people were commanding or demanding on their rates was obviously is now being adjusted back down. So unfortunately, there are people being laid off, but there was a bazillion people hired as a result of that PPP stuff. And I think that finally is shaking out too. So
Yeah. And Bitcoin, I mean, if you would have just bought some Bitcoin in January 1st, it's up 43% in a month, and just a month. And who knows where it's going to go in the short term, but in the long term,
exciting times.
it might be
I
interesting.
think it is exciting. It is.
Yeah.
I do think it's relative. That's like not to be, but
Yeah.
we are. I mean, relative to the last couple of years. I mean, we had a hard couple of years in different ways, right? There's been challenges left and right, but that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
I recently saw the cycle of I don't know what they call it, a cycle of history or something like that, but it's like good times create weak people create bad times times create strong people create good times. You need some of the bad times.
Yeah.
At all times.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's called a bubble.
Yeah, right. And you don't want to always be in comfort. And so I don't know. We're seeing tightening in various places from like, I feel like people are like companies feel like even if they're not feeling it, they need to act that way, which is not a bad thing, being kind of prudent with what you're doing. But our opportunity flow and some of the things that we're seeing are exciting. So
that's awesome.
But they're
cool.
Speaking of consistency and change, there are some things that shouldn't change and don't change, and that's our processes.
Yeah, process.
So Brad, I know that you've been instituting some new processes in your business.
Well, can I frame it a little bit also?
Absolutely.
Like for Brett, but it's almost like process, that sounds boring, right?
Yeah.
Like who wants to work on a process?
Yeah.
Brad.
So, well, the result is what's interesting. And I think why it's really relevant now is because, okay, let's say we aren't, who knows if we're going into recession, if we're in a recession, doesn't matter. Reception.
I received that.
Yeah. It's always good, especially in these times, to figure out how to optimize what you're doing. And if you can create less cost, if you can shrink cost and create more profit, then you have, whether you can command the same rates or more rates or whatever it is, you have a better way of producing at a profit. And so that's why processes are important. I think most agencies, I think traditionally, while there are systems and things, like the way they produce their results tends to be different every time. And that is high cost. And so what we're going to talk about today is breaking down how can you systemize things so that they're lower cost to produce. How do we do that?
Yes.
Right?
Yep. Exactly.
So that's kind of the reason.
One of my word this year, we talked about our words is transparency, and it's really kind of part of clarity for me. And so transparency and clarity are two words that I'm really just stuck on this year, and they're kind of everything in my life is I'm kind of just naturally trying to push more into that. I read a quote, and I can't remember. I have to look it up who the guy is, but it's been around for a long time. He's a business thought leader, probably from maybe the 50s and 60s. I'm not sure, but it says if you don't know how to put what you're doing into a process, you don't know what you're doing. And
That's good.
And it stung because I'm like, I do things that I don't know that I could easily share with somebody and get them up to speed and have them do it and delegate it without really going through my process, because I kind of do processes I realize that I don't even think about. But if somebody came in and didn't have the experience, how could they do this? And so I've been thinking more about that, and we've been thinking about that as an agency. If everyone had to delegate what they were doing, could they put it into easy processes? And it just kind of helped us to reframe and rethink the way we're doing things, and then also how do we leverage that process to to do things quicker, to have more efficiencies and less cost. And so those are kind of some of the things I'd like to talk about a little bit. I'd like to maybe unpack a little bit about, your experiences with onboarding clients and how you use process and how that process works with your team. I always tell my two things. I tell my team, I said, if you, for some reason, couldn't use your hands and you couldn't actually do anything but orally tell people what to do or show them how to do it, what would that look like for you if you walked in tomorrow and you literally couldn't do what you could just kind of tell somebody what to do? Could you create a process out of it? We had a business, somebody that came into our office who is specifically expert in process, and he said one of the things that he always tries to do is he's always, whatever he's doing, he's always saying, in 2 months from now, if I were to get either leave the role or I get promoted out of the role, how do I leave this role better than I came in? Meaning, how do I create processes that somebody can walk in and actually do, and it can be very quickly trained. Like, it's always like, so it's a mindset kind of thing that how do I leave this role better than when I came in and I struggled to kind of get on board and understand it, and there's no processes and I was frustrated and all that stuff. So, yeah.
That's good.
I think that's absolutely great. Let's dig into what's going on.
I think a lot of times people listening to this, or when you start talking about process, depending on your personality type and your giftings and skills, some people's eyes can roll back in their head and they're like, oh no, it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
I think a good place to start, and I'll just throw my hat in there and then you guys can run with it and go deeper. But for me, process is important for several reasons, which you've already stated. But one of the most simple things you can do to get started on this more process-oriented and time and resource-saving endeavor is to simply document how you do things. I'm always surprised when I go in and consult with organizations or wherever I may be, that I say, okay, you've got 10 people, this person does this does this. They're really good at it. And if they were to leave tomorrow, do you have the exact formula that they use every day to do what they do? And I'm always surprised that so many of them are like, oh, well, we've been thinking about that. We need to do that, because you're just so busy doing things and things change so quickly, right? The knowledge comes in and it evolves over time. And so I would just say, first step, if you're a solopreneur or you're a small business and you're like, oh, where do I even begin with process? Just open a Google sheet and have yourself or your team go, okay, here's a task that I perform on behalf of my clients. Here's step 1, here's step 2, here's step 3, here's step 4. Here's what we need from the client, here's what we need here. And just document it. And so that you have at some point, real easily within a few weeks, every time somebody needs to know how to do something, they know exactly what that quote process is. And that goes a long way inside of agencies and organizations, because it helps to give everybody on the same page and to know what they're doing. Because so many times account directors don't really know what an ad manager is doing. An ad manager doesn't really know what a developer is doing. Yeah. And if you just have those in a drive that you can all share at any time, it creates some really great collaboration. It creates better ways of doing things. And at the end of the day, when people get laid off or they leave or whatever, you can hand it over to someone and they can continue to improve on that. So that, I would just throw that out there to say that's one simple thing you need to be doing.
Exactly. And I think the thing that I've learned is that there's certain people who think like processes and efficiencies. And so you get those people to kind of think on top of those. I find that a lot of people will do what they feel most comfortable, which isn't always the most efficient. So they want to have wins in their life. Everyone wants to feel like a superstar and feel like they're doing a good job. But a lot of people tend to go toward what they know, even if it's not, the process isn't very efficient, or they're wasting more time on things, or they're working in 3 different platforms to do a thing that one platform could do. And, there's just a lot of inefficiencies. So I think trying to have some counsel with people who are coming from the outside, whether that's another, colleague who's just kind of bent that way, who can kind of look at it from an outside point of view, I think is really good. I know that's one thing that we've been trying to do, is to look at all of our systems and trying to say, how can we consolidate systems so that we have everything in one place and we have SOPs that are easy. I think the key is for processes, you've got to make it easy. And you can make processes all day long, but if it doesn't feel right and for somebody else, or if it doesn't feel logical, or if it's too much, and it's not simple, then it's not going to be done. And the key is you can build processes all day long, but to get everyone on board with those processes and see the value, you've got to be able to challenge your processes, and simplify.
Yeah, I mean, that's, we look at it, when I do process, this kind of area, we've found 2 areas in particular of a lot of value. So one is on, like the delivery side of things. Like, so Bob was talking about, like, how do you do this? 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 And that means that if someone needs to sub in, that there's documentation of that thing. It also means that, over time you can figure out what is busy work, right? Like, yep. we had a couple episodes on AI use, that how we're using AI inside of our agencies to do different things. You can take, over time the commodities get, technology takes those over, right? And so you got to constantly be saying, hey, how can technology help here, right? What's busy work, what isn't. The other side that I think is something that I don't see a lot of service-based businesses doing, which we've found to be really good, is systemizing the actual products and services that you offer.
Yes.
And so like when someone comes in the door, the typical kind of full service agency is like, we do everything, which you may, and that's fine. But like, then, it's like a menu someone's got to choose from. It's like you're, I don't know, at like it's the equivalent of having a chef in front of you. And he's like, what do you want me to make you? Which is awesome, but it's really expensive, right? And so, but we don't, as agencies, like often charge enough for that, and so that's where I think there's a gap. The thing that we try to get to, and I repeat probably 10,000 times a week, is, we want Lego blocks or a menu of actual items, and so we don't want to be making new Lego blocks. We want to use our Lego blocks to create all kinds of cool things because, Lego blocks can create all kinds of things.
Yeah.
But like they're not making new blocks. Like it's the same block. Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's efficient.
A 2-thing block and whatever. So when we're putting together services or engagements, it's like, we have a menu of the things that we do, and then we, put those together in a collection in a way that creates a unique result or for that client or what they need, right? And there are going to be times where they kind of want it this way, and you don't have it that way. You got it this way, and you gotta have to stick to that because if you're customizing, if you're building new Lego blocks, or if you're like a custom chef every single time, it's not repeatable. You can't get better at it over time. It does not get more efficient. It's when new people come in, they have to learn it. So anyway, those two areas have created a lot of value for us. I don't know. Do you guys do anything like that?
We actually do, and actually we're working on templatizing more of our products in a way that is really easy for us to estimate and really easy for us to get a project onboarded.
It helps every area.
Yeah,
from estimation to
I can
execution.
unpack a little bit of what we're doing and what.
Yeah,
and again, we're just kind of we're kind of going rogue a little bit on what we're doing in a way. I don't know if this is typical. We're not using a typical agency software. So we were on Asana for our project management, and we found that Asana was really good, but it was also very restrictive in certain ways, and it didn't offer us certain things. So we actually moved over to Monday. Mm-hmm. Monday is a company, and this is a plug, but it's not. We don't get paid for it, but it's they're pretty highly financed, and they're very aggressive to introducing new integrations and things. It's very flexible. So what we do is we've started templatizing our projects into, and so literally when we do, let's just say we have a certain, we're doing a web development, and it's a certain type of web. So we have different like A, B, C, D, E type of web development, right? That we kind of know what it entails. For the different variances, and we literally would just drag that project and start a brand new project. It automatically has all the hours for it, and we pretty much know what the cost is for the most part. You can tweak it if there's some nuances and stuff, but then what happens is the whole project is already set up, all the timelines, and what we do is we trigger it. So we will, let's say that even we're estimating for a customer that's not a current customer, and we don't know if we're going to get it. It goes into our process. It gets put into as a job, but it's just drop and drag. And though we know the prices, and then we start to look at, okay, if we were to get this, who in our team's going to do it? We may even start to assign those people all the way to all the tasks. Let's say we have a project that has 100 different tasks. You can start assigning up, and they actually will start to get notified. Hey, they're going to have something due at this. All the freelancers go in there, all the contractors, everything, including pricing. And then each project has a separate dashboard, so you can see real-time data that can be shared with clients and other things. And so then what happens is once that becomes a job within the system, there's a process to doing that. So every project manager will then put that into a master job list. All of that gets done, and then from my point of view, I can see the whole house, and I can see when invoices should be being paid, the month. So I see a lot of financial data to every project. Mm-hmm. So I have for me as somebody who manages the company, I can have a whole perspective. I can see when projects are stuck. I can see the financial data. I can see everything, and and from there we actually do estimates. Then, so from there, the clients, will see that. We'll even show clients like the project and the Gantt charts, and they're, wow, this is a lot more complex than I ever imagined, and it is what it is. You have to do this stuff. And a lot of times clients don't understand the amount of energy that goes into a project. So what it does too is we give deadlines to clients. Like, we need deliverables by this time. And we then message all of that and even show them, hey, look at this Gantt chart. This is a timeline. If you want your product here, we're going to need to be at this milestone by this time. And what it does is it gives them some, they understand that they have to get back to us. So
you touched on a thing that we found immensely valuable, is that when you bring someone into the complexity that seems to the thing that seems like, oh, this is just so simple, right? You just like going to do X, Y, and Z. When simple means a lot of generally negative things.
Sure.
When someone thinks it's more simple than it is. And so bringing someone into the reality of what it takes to do X, Y, and Z here and there, that actually it can help a lot of areas of your business, I've found, right? It can help if you're trying to validate the price. Yeah. It can help if you're trying to make sure that they're on board with getting things at a certain time. Yep. The time, all those types of things.
And it helps differentiate you too, because you may do things that are very valuable, and then the client's like, well, what about this? Could we eliminate that? Well, if you eliminate that, you're going to eliminate this benefit for you. Do you really want to do that? Like, oh, no, not that. We're taking away some things that we definitely need. I'm like, okay, it is what it is. But anyways, it just gives accountability to your customer, so that your customer isn't doing scope creep. They're not delaying timelines, because you've got to set, as an agency, right? You're setting up your people and you're allocating that time and dedicating that time for that client. So they need to be part of that. And if they see it, they know you're buttoned up, and then they can't skirt around it. So if they're not seeing these things and they're not part of that process, I'm telling you, they don't know what they don't know, and they're just gonna go, well, what if we delayed it for 3 weeks, and they're delayed and whatever. So it's really accountability for everybody and clarity. So it's really for us a good process. We're now integrating things where we can do automated through other services through Monday. Actually, they have so many integrations that you can literally say, okay, now I want this with one click of a button. It can actually generate estimates, populate all the text in it, send it out to the client. So there's a lot of automation that we're now working on to help even expedite some of that stuff.
You guys track time against all these things?
We do. We track time on certain things. We track time on we're getting better at that, but we track time on our retainers, and we're getting even better to holding to the time that we quote, so that if a certain designer only has 6 hours, the project manager has to make sure they get it done in 6 hours. And the person knows that they have 6 hours.
Do you have what system, how does that integrate with Monday?
Yeah, so Monday has a feature that literally there's an app, and even contractors and anybody who's working on a project, there's a play button. You just play it, and it will actually, while you're working on it, actually keep track of all the time. So it does have automation in that area, or you can just manually say, this is how much I worked on it. I mean, it's whatever, but it does have the feature to do that. So. And we're getting better at it. It's like we've been using it since the first of the year. It's taken a little bit to onboard and move everything out and kind of understand it. You have to kind of make it work for your organization, but it's pretty powerful.
That's cool. That's very cool. I think the feature, I know we had this with Excello. It's a little more robust, but Monday sounds like a stripped down version of it. And the ability to templatize tasks and then attach time and hours to it is really, really efficient. It sounds like you're starting to learn how to do that, so that when a client goes, I need this, this, and this, or you're writing a proposal, you can just go in there and you don't, it saves you so much time. To know exactly like what's your cost going to be, what's your profit, how to price that accordingly. And then what resources it's going to take you, right?
Exactly. So this helps us to identify where we lack resources and where we need to bring contractors in early on, like even months before the project, before they would actually engage. And so we're finding that what the challenge is, if we're not doing that till a couple weeks out, all the good people, all of our good contractors are booked. But if we can know this a month earlier, then we can actually get them on board earlier and get them committed to it. And they know their deadline isn't for 2 more weeks or 2 more months, and they know they're probably not going to even engage it. And the cool thing is when they start it, they can actually say, I've started this thing, I'm working on it. And so it does all these automations. You can do anything. I mean, it'll literally text you. You can do anything you want to get notified. Like it obviously has all the integrations into Slack and other things. But any way that your contractors really need to be notified, even outside of email, like texting reminders, you can do all that stuff. It's pretty cool. One of the things that we've noticed is that by the time we get a project in, by the time we've set that project up and actually start to work on it, sometimes 4 weeks goes by. And the client's like, where's this? It's been already a month. And we're like, so what happens is we now get to the point where when we set this job up and it's a real job, the clock starts. And you can even put on the dashboard a countdown to when your milestones are. So you can literally see how many days you have. And whoever's managing the project can just look at these dashboards and see real time what projects are stuck, who they need to contact, where you're over in hours, the budget, how much money you're not making. It's like you can build these dashboards on every project and make them however you really want. So we have templates for those too, but there's so much cool customization that a project manager can just go, I need this little thing here that we don't normally have on the template, but it's going to be helpful. Boop, just pop it up there and it's good to go.
So now that how far into finalizing this are you? Are you done with
we're completely on board.
The first phase of this kind of thing?
Yeah, we're completely on board. I think now what we're trying to do is refine our processes a little bit of like the full processes that we have and what project managers do and who's kind of taking certain roles. And then we are looking to, the next step is to how do we do even further integrations with other third-party process or apps that we use for like our financial, like it has syncs up to all these different financial platforms. It can do automation of invoicing, automation of estimates, everything through different platforms.
So now that you've gone through all this, what would you estimate? How many services does Anthem Republic provide?
I would say overall we probably provide 20, but there's nuances within those 20. So we're trying to build like for
and do you have a template for each one?
Yes, and we are still building templates, just so you know. So we have like a lot of A, B, and C type of projects. Some that are larger, just as templates, and so that this is this is kind of basic, but just to say, hey, this is a 10-page website.
Right.
Just a basic website. There's not, it's just 10 pages of content. And it's built on this platform, blah, 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 and just boop, pop it in there. And it literally puts the timeline together and it's stuff. So you can say, okay, when is this project launch? And you put a date and the whole timeline gets shifted, boop, based on that date and when it should be delivered so that you're not, doing a website that takes 6 months that should take 3 months. But we find a lot of that we're doing a lot of that kind of stuff. It's like the client, it doesn't matter how long it takes you to do a project. If it's a 3-month project that takes 6 months, the agency sometimes doesn't really feel it, but the client's like, that's just not reasonable.
Well, the agency does feel it.
We do feel
they
it.
just may not be aware of it.
Correct.
And that is the problem, and that's where I'm getting to is like once you start to measure these things, it may sound so boring to like measure these things, but here's the question. Like, do you like money? Like, correct. In any way. And your goal may not be money. Do you like the freedom that money provides? Do you like having to not worry about having to fire everybody? Do you like being able to continue to serve people? Do you like feeling like there's some stability to your business? Like, do you like those things? Because going through the kind of somewhat tedious process of, figuring out what are the services I provide? What are the templates? How do I set it up? And how do I track it? How do I make sure everyone's on board with that? How do we make sure that it gets done on time? Because I would say in our world, if it's not, we're struggling to keep the client on track if there's any struggle. Like we're not struggling to get ours done because we've dialed in. We know how long it takes to do this thing. And I know if we go over this deadline, we start losing money.
Yeah.
And if the client goes over this deadline, that's going to be a problem as well. We have kind of things written into our contract, but we try and keep them on track because we know once it goes past X date, like the negative stock clock starts ticking.
Yeah.
Because the reality is, you might have hybrid workers, right? We do too. Meaning some are contractors, some are full-time, salaried. But the reality is like your cost structure, I'm talking to like anyone listening to this, your cost structure is generally fixed. Like you're going to be spending X number of dollars every month, whether you get it done in 1 month or whether you get it done in 6 months. And so, let's say you spend $10,000 a month in cost on something. If it's 6 months, that's $60,000. If you do it in 3 months, it's $30,000. Really simple, right? And you get paid the same for that project.
Correct.
So let's get it done as efficiently as possible.
And the thing is, you can't hit a target that you can't see or you can't measure, right? That's basic. One of the cool things too, and I'm not trying to promote Monday, there's other systems that are probably just very similar. There's ClickUp, which is a competitor. It runs very similar in the way that they do stuff. But one of the cool things is that you can build dashboards overall in the house, and you can broadcast those dashboards on televisions or screens, so you can have targets, so you can see real-time dashboards of all your projects and where they are. And I think that's the key, is that sometimes what happens is you don't have the stuff in front of you, and so you're not looking at the target all the time. Like you got to dig into it and go to that file and look at the stuff and keep an eye on it. But if you had a dashboard where everybody saw and everybody was kind of like, can participate in some of the issues, like, hey, this is stuck. We need to unstuck this. Otherwise, this project's going to be dead. Yeah. So the tools are getting better for that. And again, it's just kind of making sure the team understands these are our goals and these are what we want to meet. So you make it fun. Like if your goal is to not go over on any projects in time, not see more than a 5% overage in time, you can build a dashboard and you can actually measure that and make it fun, like a scoreboard.
Right.
And
that's one thing that I've always tried to push too is provide an environment that values data and metrics. Because that's a culture thing that you have to address many times. Because in agencies, many times we're so wrapped up in execution or the creative or even the results that we forget the data and the metrics. And if you can create a culture, i.e. like gamifying it, putting it up on screens around the office, almost like a ticker tape. One thing I've also found, and I think this plays into process, when you create that culture, you not only make it better for the client and for yourself, and you are able to optimize, but you also catch things quicker. When you're not creating a culture of data and metrics, things can slip. And a perfect example, I remember working in an environment where we started putting all of our ad results up on. So you just go to a tool that can take the API from, say, Google or Facebook, and you just see the clicks and the conversions almost like a ticker tape up on a screen. You can put all of them up there, 4 or 5 going at a time. And then, if for some reason something falls off, at 12 o'clock and you don't get to it until 2 days later because you're not checking in on the ads, or something gets turned off, or your credit card, gets rejected, that can really cause issues with clients.
Absolutely.
And I think it's part of the process is creating a culture of metrics so that people are constantly keeping an eye on it, and it's part of your ethos of who you are as an agency. That's really important process too.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
and it is a cultural thing. It's allowing people to understand, and if the more you engage them in the process, the more they want to participate in it. They want to do the process, and so it's been fun for me because it's allowed me to instantly now, literally within a month and a half, have clarity that I just didn't have.
That's good.
If I want to look at something, I can see it. I can see exact clarity where the project is, if it's stuck, if we're missing our billing, if we're and then we can focus on things and as a team say, hey, this project needs help. So we're just having regular meetings where we're like, okay, where's the stuck project that we need to kind of put a little extra love onto it to unstuck it. Yeah.
Free it up.
Free it up. There you go. We unstuck it.
Free.
And so then how do we get it going and get it moving? So we're all participating as kind of a team, but at the same time, we're all have our own projects we're kind of managing.
I think it's your duty as a business owner, and everyone's, like if you run an agency, I think it's your duty to do this.
Absolutely.
You have to.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Random question.
Yes.
You seem to start the same process around the same time that you started playing with AI and ChatGPT. Did it play into each other? Like, you had said that on one of our last episodes that ChatGPT was helping you and save time.
Yeah.
And things. Is there any connection there?
No. No. This has been a problem that we've been trying to. Not a problem. It's just been something as we're scaling.
Okay.
We're just like, so we have some pretty wildly important goals in our financial goals this year.
Yeah, BHAGs.
They're called WIGs, but the same thing, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we call them wildly important goals. What's a BHAG? It's the big,
hairy, audacious goal.
Yeah, same thing. Anyway, so we're all reaching
I thought it was big, hairy ass.
Well, I don't know. Jim Collins? He's the guy that.
Okay. So
that's it. I'm gonna start going to a different place.
So we but no, it wasn't part of that. What it was is going, how do we onboard new business at the rate that we want to? Let's just dream a little bit, and let's just say we actually are able to meet this goal. How are we going to be able to handle these projects when without how do we do this? How do we manage it better?
How do we scale efficiently?
How do we scale? And I think what happened was COVID really, like it or not, put a damper on growth in our company. I think we just were kind of surviving, trying to make sure clients were surviving. And so we weren't looking at growth. And what happens is that we kind of had to really internally, everybody kind of take on roles. And so they took on the roles, which is fine, but they kept the information to themselves. They are the ones that you had to go through for a gatekeeper to get information. And so we wanted to unpack that further to have more transparency. And we use Asana, and Asana is a great tool too. It's a great tool. It might be perfect for what you're doing. But we just found that that Monday offered us some really unique things that Asana just couldn't do, and the ways to look at things and ways to get things on their feet quickly. You can do templates and stuff like that in Asana, and there's obviously a ton of other.
It's more of a project management tool versus a full agency suite, right?
Asana?
Yeah,
but so is Monday. Monday is like you can.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Asana is really about project management.
Correct. Yep, and Monday is. The way it's structured is different. You almost think of it as almost like spreadsheets, but the way it works, it is a lot more flexible. And again, there's just the integrations, and like you can set up right in there, like if this does this and this does that, then that does this, and then text me and do that, and like you can set up all these workflows in it that are pretty cool. And you can move things automatically do this. When this happens, automatically hit a third party through an API that already has a connection, like QuickBooks, automatically create an invoice with this text and automatically get it there as a draft. It can do some pretty cool things. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
good.
awesome.
I'm glad to hear it. This is good. Hopefully there's, like we go deep into some of the minutia because that's some of the value that we try and provide. And so for some that's boring, for others that's like, wow, I've been trying to figure this out and this is one way of doing it. This is one way somebody's doing it. And that's kind of what we're trying to provide here. And so hopefully, it's not too deep for anyone because that's the reason why we do this.
Yeah. And I'd be interested in hearing from folks of what they're using that might be unique. Again, this isn't a full plug for Monday. I know it was, but there's a lot of other resources out there to do what we're doing, and it'd be interesting to hear what people are doing.
Or just how you're systemizing. Systemizing is how you're going to scale and grow and be profitable.
Yeah.
If you're not systemized, then you're essentially a sole practitioner.
Yeah.
Small business.
And one more last note. What I realize is there's going to be superstars in your agency who can do projects quicker, get them up on their feet quicker. But what you have to do is you have to plan for the average person and their speed. So some people are just not super tech savvy. Like even young people might not even be as tech savvy, right? And you have to know this is a process that anybody could go through, and it doesn't have to be a tech superstar to make it to make the speed happen. So you have to actually estimate the time based on the average person, not the superstar, because the superstar may be able to do it in half that speed. But you really have to start creating these templates and these costs based on
create costs based on worst case scenario.
Correct, but you also have to be competitive, and so you got to make sure you're competitive.
Maybe a different episode we can talk about that.
Yeah,
because I just think that there's a lot of ways to influence what you can charge that have nothing to do with the time you spend in the thing.
Correct.
And so I think that's where, if you're trying to be competitive by doing things cheaply, then I think that's a bad business strategy.
Yeah. You're just going to be a commodity.
Yeah. Or you're not going to ever you're always going to be at a loss.
Yeah.
Like you're always going to be the one that has to jump in because you don't have enough hands on deck to do it the right way or whatever. There's a barrier that service businesses have to get past, and it's a hard one where you're getting paid. How do you earn enough to invest the right things so that you can build a business? A lot of people are stuck in not earning enough because they can't charge enough for a bunch of different reasons. And maybe we can unpack how you charge. I would like to dig into, because I ask my team this question all the time, like, how can we charge 10 times that? How can we? How can we charge 100? I'm not saying I want to price myself out. I'm not saying it has nothing to do with, it's not even thinking about in the moment, the result or the value. It's saying, asking yourself that question, because then it forces you the next step to ask the question of like, well, how can we improve the result that it creates? And then how can we reduce the effort that we have? And how can we, all these other questions fall out of that. And so anyway,
I like that.
Maybe we can dig into that a little bit on the sales side of things.
Yeah, let's do it.
Sounds good. Well, gentlemen, this has been good. We'll continue to revisit your journey with Monday and your processes as the Kings go by, because if I know you're going to keep making it better and better and better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for sharing, Brad.
Until next time, guys.
No
Talk to you soon.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.